Over the weekend, Georgia's Republican Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger was out there on the cable news show pitching his new book called Integrity Counts that came out last week. And during one of his appearances in an attack on Donald Trump, he actually blamed Stacey Abrams for Donald Trump's election lies. Let me read this statement from this idiot. If you look at what Stacey Abrams did, she lost the state of Georgia in 2018 by 55,000 votes. She questioned the legitimacy of our elections. She actually set the table along with all the leaders, national Democrat leaders that supported Stacey Abrams and her big lie, and set the table for President Trump to ramp it up and take it to the next level. Now, Brad, you weren't asked this on the cable news shows, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. Did you get death threats from Stacey Abrams supporters? Because you've admitted getting death threats from Donald Trump supporters, because you wouldn't overturn the election for him. So I'm just wondering, did any Republican officials in Georgia get death threats from angry Stacey Abrams supporters? Not that that's even totally relevant to this conversation, but I do think it's an interesting point to make here. Brad, part of your book explicitly talks about all the threats that both you and your wife received from these crazed Trump supporters. You know how dangerous he is, and you have the friggin' audacity to turn around and blame this on Stacey Abrams, who, for the record, had a legitimate claim that that election was stolen from her. Because after all, her opponent in the race, Brian Kemp, who is now the governor of Georgia, was the Secretary of State at the time. And shortly before the election, he decided to purge more than 500,000 voters from the Georgia voting rolls. And that included at least 107,000 individuals who were later found to have been perfectly eligible to vote. And as you correctly pointed out, he only won by a margin of 55,000 votes. But if he purged at least 107,000 eligible voters from the rolls for no reason whatsoever, then yeah, I'd say that amounts to a legitimate claim of election theft. However, Stacey Abrams did not in any way try to overturn the results of that election. She did not do that, Brad. And you know that. What Raffensperger is attempting to do is to set himself up as a staunch conservative who is anti-Democrat, but also not as crazy as the Trump people. Is Brad hoping to run for a higher office someday? I sure as hell think so. I think that is what is driving all of this. I think that's the purpose of his new book, and of course to, make a quick buck here and there. But I really think he is attempting to position himself as a hardcore anti-Democrat Republican, but also rational enough to not buy into the big Trump lies. And now what you've done is you've pissed off everybody, Brad. You're making stuff up just like Donald Trump does. You're trying to blame Stacey Abrams just like Donald Trump did. And you're no better than him. You may not have given in to his fantasy, but you sure as hell went along with the rest of the Republicans in the state when it came time to suppress voters for future elections. You supported that. You helped make it happen. You're no different from the rest of the MAGA hat-wearing Republican Party today, Brad. And I don't care how many books you put out. I don't care how many people you try to scapegoat like Stacey Abrams. You're a fraud. You always have been, and you always will be.